Hi everyone, this is AutoML Training Working Group Community Call on 7th of August. This meeting will be recorded and published on YouTube, and this meeting is governed by the CNCF Code of Conduct. Welcome everyone. So maybe we can start today's call with a quick introduction. Do we have anyone here on the call who just want to introduce themselves? Any new folks in the community?
I am actually a new
Yeah.
one here. It's the first time I join here, so I would like to say hello to the Kubeflow community. Big hello, and so my name is Michał Woźniak. I work mostly with the batch working group community. I work for Google, and our main project that we developed in open source is Q and maintain. Yeah, and the major assumption for the mission for the batch working group is to unify, consolidate how people think about running batch workloads or AI/ML workloads in the Kubernetes ecosystem. So that's why we have initiatives like JobSet that I know that will be like basis for the new training operator that will consolidate a lot of details, like technical details between the different operators in the Kubeflow. So I don't know. That's for me for the intro, I guess.
Thank you, Michael. Nice to see you here. Nice to see
And
you.
I have a topic today, so
Hey.
I will jump right to this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we have discussion about multi-queue, so we'll speak like about it like during this call today. Definitely. All right. Anyone else want to say hello before we can get started?
Hello everyone, I am Harshit. I'm from Jaipur, India. So this is my first community call with Kubeflow. So I was actually exploring the open source community and I found this project very interesting. So I tried setting up it on my own and I was looking through some issues and yeah, I took one first good issue about the updation of the docs. So yeah, I am really excited to be part of this.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for joining, Harshit. Did you already try to deploy some of the Kubeflow components on your cluster, or just exploring the ecosystem initially?
Yeah, I tried the manifest one. I set up locally on my system and I was exploring it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, feel free to reach out to us on Slack or any other, resources so we can get any help like from our side. Also like if you want to like maybe understand how you can help us in terms of good first issues, we can also guide you to, like get familiar with the community and start working on some workstream items as well. Thanks for
Yeah,
joining.
sure. Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else before we get started? All right, then I think it'll do. So let me just share my screen. Right. So I think before we jump to the main discussion, I just want to give some like few updates for the recent workstream items we've done in the last couple of weeks. So for the release, I think everything looks good. We kind of like identify a few issues with the train API, like for fine tuning, but I think we're kind of like submitting these issues to the upstream already. But let us know again, like if you see any problems with the existing release in training operator or Katip, so we can submit some patch release if if you kind of identify any any bugs there. So for training V2, we finally merged the proposal. Again, this was significant effort. I want to say huge thank you for everyone who actually participated in this. And I think we're starting this discussion back with Michael back in March 2024 during the KubeCon. So it was a very long discussion of how we can consolidate our effort between the Kubeflow community and the batch working group in Kubernetes. And I think this proposal looks very exciting. I'm already kind of have a lot of positive feedback from many customers and from many users who see the value of like reusable runtimes and how it actually simplified experience for model training and fine-tuning on Kubernetes. So please take a look. I think as a next step again, like I think I will first of all. So we already have some initial discussion with Yuki how we want to structure our plan our work in the Q4. I will start with tracking issue, and also I will probably create a dedicated project to track some of the items. I know some of the folks want to help us with the implementation, so we will try to see how we can separate the work between us, and then maybe assign the issues to the multiple key members within the community, so you can basically help us with the contribution, because I think it will be a lot of work there, like all the way from the API changes to the controller, to the documentation, to the E2 test, and to the runtimes, LLM runtimes, right? So it will be like a long, long period of time of work. And I think our plan is like maybe initially support just maybe a few of the runtimes, and like initially see some of the like gather some of the initial feedback from customers, and then eventually expand with kind of like more advanced use cases, whether it is with MPI or even like support other runtimes like deep speed or anything else that we can offer, right? And especially with LLM side of things, right? So what kind of set of models we as a community can support, and like how we can especially test them, because I know we need to basically have some sort of infra to verify it. And we started some conversation with CNCF to maybe give us some GPUs to test some of those models during our E2s. So I think this will be interesting to see how we can like improve um, the integration test and the unit test for all these runtimes the community are going to support. Yeah, so please take a look if you're like wondering how like the final API will look like. And again, this API will be in alpha stage, so we kind of like probably make some changes before we're making this GA. But let us know if you have any additional feedback or any other like questions or comments for this proposal. Yeah, any questions right now before I move on?
Hi, and I have one question. So how, like, by when are we targeting the completion of the implementation?
Yeah, I think so. Our feeling that we can implement the, initial runtime in the Q4. So our goal is to initially just appoint a PyTorch with a distributed runtime. And the changes will be required is the API changes, the controller changes, and the webhook changes. So I think like initially we will implement this, and then like maybe in Q1 Q2 we can start to expand this based on the user feedback. I think also because we might need to require to do some changes for the storage initializer, right? Because like we back to the original like architecture diagrams here, how we want to support LLM runtimes. We want to have this kind of like specific job which do the initialization, right? And it's like we want to split the like model initialization and dataset initialization between multiple components, basically between multiple containers, right? So we might need to build a custom storage, like the custom model initializer, custom dataset initializer, and I think all of this will require some work because today we just don't support it, right? Yeah, also like I think we need to separate like enhancement proposal on the SDK side of things. So we discussed it with Yuki a little bit, but we need to see how we can refactor SDK to support this new way of submitting the jobs, right? Especially like how we can make it very simple for data scientists, like to build an image with a kind of reusable runtimes, right? So maybe automate some sort of the image building, automate some sort of like the model fetching from like from Hugging Face or from any like providers we're going to support, right? Yeah, so these things I think will require some work for us to do, right? But initial implementation we're targeting like a Q4 for now, right?
Got it.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, then I think like the next step again, I will create them, meta track. I think we already have the meta tracking issue, but I didn't have a chance to, like split the work there. So what I'm planning to do is actually like, create a maybe dedicated project in GitHub. I know like GitHub is a lot of different, like a lot of updates for the project, so we can try to see how we can track this as the like on the timeline as the milestones, right? And at the same time, like I will try to like, create maybe sub issues for every small task so we can assign it to the dedicated folks in the community. Yeah, and also I think we have some things which we need to do in the job site level, right? So I think we also need to track this as part of this proposal. Yeah, especially on Elastic support side, right? Okay, so I think anyway, let me create the issue first, identify the work stream items, and then we can see how we can assign the work between us, right? All right.
Andre,
Yeah.
small question.
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
who has the permission to create GitHub project? Only you?
Yeah, I think you also have it, right? Because you have the right access. So we can basically do it here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, everyone with right access can create the projects, if I remember correctly. Yeah.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
Yeah, we also can ask, like admins of the GitHub org to make this project public, so everyone can see it, right? But I think we've been using projects for KTPY, if I remember correctly, a while ago. Let me see. Projects. I know KFP. I know Kubeflow Notebooks is using projects here, right? So I think maybe we can have something similar, but with it, maybe we need to think about the boards, right? Timeline board, like the table board, other like set of the view, right? But if you have any ideas how we can plan it, I'm more than happy to, like discuss. I'm not like super familiar with this tool. I know some features in the projects, but I just want to see would it be useful for us to, track the work on the project board, basically, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we can create small issues and list it in project step by step.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
Andrew, one question. Can you hear me
Yeah,
okay?
yeah, you go, Sharon.
Yeah, so my question is on the migration. So I suppose like these are backward incompatible, right? So I'm wondering if we are tracking the migration side of things or whether we are kind of prepared to announce that's completely backward incompatible. Or what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think we're planning to provide instructions for users to migrate. So I think again, we as a community like agreed to support the V1 version for quite some time, maybe like a year and a half. I mean, do we have a strict timeline yet, right? I know, like for example, Kubeflow pipeline supporting the V1 version for like 3 years already, I mean 2 years, right? So it really depends on the migration side of things, like right, when we're going to deprecate. But like providing users instructions might be sufficient, because the problem we were thinking about conversion webhook, but it could be tricky because we also changed the orchestration, right? How the job will be created. And the thing is, like, we really want to hear from users, like what kind of runtime they want to support. For example, like XGBoost job, right? We don't know like about the usability of XGBoost job in production right now, because we don't really hear a lot of feedback from users. How many of them actually use this, right, in production? Similar to like Pedal, for example, right? So I think until we kind of like receiving the user requirements that, hey, I'm using this framework, I want to use threading operator to like orchestrate distributed threading, right, or fine tuning, we can easily implement, right? And there is another problem for us to support new framework, right? Because it's extremely simple with it, with the job sets and with the similar capabilities across all those frameworks, right? In terms of how to do distributed training, right? So, yeah. Does make sense to Sean?
Yeah, okay. I think that's makes sense. But I was curious to say like for example, on a cluster, you'd have the operator V1 image and operator V2 image. We cannot have that coexisting, correct?
I think we can. So yeah, I think it's a good question actually. Yeah, Yuki, what do you think? We can definitely create a different controllers, right? If we want to, because the CRD will be different, and the images we're planning to have a different set of images. For
Yeah,
this.
I'm wondering if we should provide B1 and B2 both image version for a while, like two pro versions or 1 year.
Mhm.
So after we duplicate B1 version, so we can remove B1 image.
Yeah, I think the question more was like from Shama, like, are we planning to give a user ability to run two controllers in the same cluster? I think the answer is yes, right? Because the CRD are different, right? CRD.
Yeah,
Mhm.
technically it should work fine because
Yep.
both between B1 and B2 CRD are completely different.
Yeah, I think we need to also discuss how we're going to publish the image, right? Because right now we tag the image with the version. Okay, we'll probably tag it with the v1 minus SHA, right?
Um, so actually, before we created dedicated issue for release, automatically release
Mhm.
publishing issue. Um, maybe so we should use semantic versioning in the image tags, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think that's right. I think we can use the semantic version, right? And we can also use the um, let me show you. So we can use the version of the controller inside the tag, right? I think we do this today. Let me just see training operator tags, right? Yeah, so if I let me share my screen just a second. Mhm. So this is our Docker images, right? So as we can see, like we kind of like tagging them with the v1, right? And with the SHA, right? With the commit SHA. So, like maybe we can publish two different images for v1 and v2. And, maybe we can have a two set of deployments, right? Yeah, I think we need to think about it, right? Because the question is like, do we want to provide those two set of manifests, right? And other parts. We haven't discussed it yet. We just discussed like how we want to construct the directory structure for, controllers and other things, right? For webhooks, right?
Yeah, so I'm thinking if we can create B2 directory under the manifest directory, right?
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, that might be like one of the idea, right? Like create a v2 under manifest, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
think
sorry, the Helm charts would, if they're different, I suppose that it's easy for users to maybe choose which Helm chart to install,
Mhm.
right? So I guess that's kind of an easy thing to do. I think. I mean, it's also possible you install both Helm charts. So I guess the Helm chart, if you have separate Helm charts, I guess that'll be much easier for the community.
Yeah. So yes, we just use customized right now, right? We don't use Helm charts. But I mean, like, yes, you can version the Helm charts, right? With the v1 and v2. But the thing is, like, the differences will be only with the image, right? So the manifest will be exactly the same, at least for now, right? So I think so I think we need to have a dedicated issue to discuss, like, like the release and the support of multiple manifests. So maybe we can provide some of the ideas and, like, how we want to support those two deployments, right? At the same time. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
Yeah, honestly, I want to keep
Mm.
using pure customized manifest instead of Helm chart because Helm chart is yeah, I understand. So Helm chart is useful so because we can construct manifest more programmable, but so it's hard to maintain Helm chart. So in the first iteration, I would like to use customized manifest, and then um
Yep.
as I can remember correctly, previously we got some requests for Helm chart in the Kotlin project.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But so we declined to provide Helm chart for same reasons. So I would like to I would like to discuss about Helm chart as a separate features instead of training bits. Does
Yeah,
it make sense?
yeah, I think we need to do it after the initial implementation, right? Because there is no problem for us to just provide a customized manifest with the V2 version in manifest, right? The thing is, like, it's across all the Kubeflow components, like we don't use Helm charts because like it's really hard to keep them in sync with the customize, and customize is much more lightweight compared to Helm charts to maintain. And also distributions can easily create something on top, right? Yeah, but I think I'm open to suggestions, right? Like in the future, if we want to migrate, right, to Helm
Mhm.
charts. And I know even like some people who are using Helm charts for different parts of Kubeflow using the manifest, right?
Yeah, I
So,
agree. Yeah.
all right. Yeah, we definitely need to think about like how we can structure our, like our directory to support two versions for quite some time. So right now we only have like the answer for SMD, where we store the Docker file for the controller, and actually the controller by itself, right? The controller source code and the APIs. Yeah, so we need other things as well, right? Okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, webhooks. Yeah, this is like initial thought about the directory structure. All right, so if we move on like on the other things, so for the GSOC, I know we have a lot of PRs and we're currently like reviewing them again, like thanks for all of your effort. This is very good. I think we're almost like ready for some of the even demos. So before I jump to the updates, any questions you have on this call that you want to talk about? So I think what would be useful if, I know like some of these PRs are still pending, but we probably want to, like, we want you to give a demo on the Kubeflow community call and also on this call, maybe sometime in the, like in the end of August. And also like we need to do some updates in documentation for the release, right? And also like add some E2E tests. So it would be really nice if you could just start working on some presentation details in addition to the work that you still need to finish, right? So that definitely will help us to review it in advance and give you more time to prepare for presentation. So presentation, I mean, it's again, it should not be really long, right? Like maybe 15 minutes for each student, or even like 10 minutes, right? Maybe like 3 or 2 slides, but at least like explain rationale and motivation behind your project, maybe some high level architecture, what you're doing, and maybe some short demo to show like the your feature that you delivered for this implementation. So I think that would be really useful. Yeah, any questions for this? Yeah, some again, like if someone from the community can help us with the review, that will be amazing, because we have like a lot of like new PRs right now that needs to be merged. So we just need someone to take a look and so we can move forward with the implementation. All right. Okay, so moving to the multi-queue. So, Michael, do you want to like give like a quick maybe overview on the discussion before we can jump to this topic?
Yeah, I have like 3 slides
Yeah,
that
sure.
maybe I
Good.
could show. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we can. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, these are like 3 slides. First of all, I would like to present you what is multi-queue, so the context, why we need support in the training operator, and then finally, or maybe we would like to have the support in V1. We know that V2 is coming, and it's like we are looking forward. It's looking great. I looked at the proposal, but still we have users or customers who are on V1, and it would be great to enable them with the multi-queue feature. So let me first show you what the multi-queue is. So basically, I'm not sure how familiar you are with queue, but it's an extension to queue to provide multi-cluster job dispatching. So what this means is that in this architecture, we have one cluster that is management cluster, and we have multiple execution clusters that could be like in different regions or different zones, or even they could be like to belong to different cloud providers. And what we do in this architecture is that the user interacts with just with the management cluster. So the user creates jobs of different types. So in queue, we support currently like a portfolio of Kubeflow jobs. We support batch job, the core job of Kubernetes. We support job set, MPI job, and possibly others. So in this case, the user creates the job with some special label. That means that it's managed by queue. And then if queue is configured to do this dispatching in the multi cluster mode, then what it does, it creates copies of the same, not exactly job, we call it like a workload object, but basically creates copies of the object that carries the information about the resource requirements, like how many GPUs, how many memory, or what is the amount of CPU needed to run the job. And these workloads, they look for capacity. And then the first workload that gets, we call it admitted, which means that it reserves enough capacity to run. Then there is like the actual copy, like clone of this job that the user created here is created here, and this is the only job that runs at this moment. So there is like established one-to-one mapping between the management cluster job and the mirror job on one of the selected execution clusters. And what happens from now on is basically queue watches changes to this job and mirrors them back, like updates this job locally here. So the user, from the user's perspective, the job gets status updated and it looks like it's making progress, even though there are no pods here. And the pods are offloaded to the selected execution cluster. So basically, this is the main design assumption. And what this allows us is two things. So there are like 2 points for the motivation. One is that with this cluster, we can, GPUs obtainability is very much constrained. Now everyone wants GPUs. So just by probing the capacity in multiple clusters, you have a better chance of finding 100 GPUs, let's say. And another motivation is that some customers or some users, they run very big clusters, many jobs, and it's hard for them to grow single cluster even more to run, I don't know, 10,000 jobs or more. And by creating the actual pods on the execution clusters, they can offload a lot the single cluster. So basically, this is the motivation. And now, why we need changes in Kubeflow. So as I was describing, user creates the job here. And we don't want to create the pods here to offload the cluster. So, but the job controller or training operator, in this case, would create the pods as soon as it sees that there is the job created. So we basically want to block this process of creating jobs. So we say that we want to disable the job controller or the training operator, any operator that manages the job created by the user on this cluster, so that then multi-queue can take ownership of mirroring the status. And so this is the story, and for this purpose we introduce the mechanism like the managed by field. So with this field we can say that okay, this particular, let's say, TensorFlow job is managed by multi-queue. So but then the support inside, let's say, batch job is needed, so that the job controller when sees that there is this managed by set to a custom controller, then it's just doesn't reconcile the job. And that's basically it in terms of like implementation wise inside the controller. So we want this integration of the Kubeflow inside multi-queue, because first it was requested by our users, and also we want to expand multi-queue in the ecosystem. So we already support these jobs, but in order to support them, currently the support is a little bit incomplete, because we don't have this thing done. So what we do is we can only install CRDs. We cannot install the controller here. And this is like I would call it workaround to make this work. So to make this TF job, let's say, work in this fashion, we cannot currently disable the controller per specific job, so we cannot install the controller, we just install the CRDs. But this complicates the process for the users, so who can run very easily into errors if instead of installing CRDs, they install the controller. And then there is a second issue, that the management cluster, because you need to be careful not to install the CRD, the controller cannot run actually any other Kubeflow jobs, which can be limiting, because then it's basically just cluster for multi-queue, and you cannot run other Kubeflow jobs as you may want or users may want. So yeah, that's why I opened this issue. So basically, what is needed to support this managed job, managed by field, is it is already done for job set, so we could follow the pattern very closely. So let me tell you that basically there is just the API validation, or maybe let me jump right here. So I summarize this here. So API definition of the field is this. This is basically an optional string managed by indicates the controller that takes ownership of the job set or any other job. And then inside of this, as I was saying, it's just basically skipping reconciliation if we see that this is custom controller. And the last thing, maybe less trivial, is validation. So what we do in, so basically in the job, or we have the assumption that this field is relatively short. and that is conforms to this format. So this is an example. This is for queue. But we allow in job or job set any set of values, which means that users could point potentially to non-existing controllers, etc. And for this, to mitigate these risks, we do a lot of validation inside the job, the batch job, to make sure that the status updates are sensible. For the use of multi-queue, the status updates will be sensible because multi-queue will basically take this status and mirror it back here, update. So this is relatively safe. So there is ongoing discussion started, and I think the consensus is settling down on only allowing for the field two values or three, like null if non-specified, this to just reserve, and then the multi-queue as the last value that will indicate that it's managed by multi-queue. So yeah, that's all that I have. So now I would be happy if there are some questions or comments.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Thank you for sharing. Like, I have just a few questions. Like, from your customer, experience perspective, do they really use this management cluster to run some of the jobs on the management cluster? Do they have a use cases?
No, not yet. So basically, this environments where we set it up for now, they are like very highly monitored and agreed, and like, so yeah, we babysit them closely, but very likely that in the wise this project matures, then there will be more wild usage, and I expect that users are likely to run into these issues.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because like my question was like from the operational standpoint, right? Like, do we view the management cluster as also like the cluster where you can run some of the workloads, or it's like purely?
Yes. So so this is like the basic model that I presented, but on the roadmap, this is not MVP.
Okay.
We foresee this as sharing the role. So actually,
Okay.
this will also be one of the workers, and then this is then absolutely needed, the managed by, because the controller will need be installed there. So actually, to support this, we call it hybrid mode. We will absolutely need managed by if we are going to do this for V1. And then the use case, the major use case here, let me tell you, is that some users want frictionless migration from single cluster to multi-cluster. So basically, they are happily using one cluster, but they are growing in size very much. But they have all the in-house stuff configured to use this cluster.
Yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. So basically, like, if capacity is just out of this cluster, they want to, use other, capacity from other regions, so they can make sure like their, jobs are stable, right? And
Yeah, exactly. So this is not currently what we do. Like again, we set up clusters from scratch, babysit, etc. But ultimately, the idea is that you won't do frictionless migration from single cluster environment to multi-cluster environment, and you can do this gradually. So you can have some set of jobs, I don't know, some namespace, etc., just dedicated for multi-queue, that you can grow this usage, and those jobs will be dispatched by multi-queue, but still you will continue to run on the same cluster a big chunk of jobs as before. So
yeah,
that's why you just gradually migrate.
yeah, that makes sense. And the second question about like the state management. So you said, like, I know that multi-queue has the controller which is fetching the state from the, worker clusters, right? So it's basically just fetching the object and like using the same state, basically, like, just doing the patch on the user submission CRD in the management cluster. So how does it fetch the state from the workers?
Yeah, so this is what we do. We fetch. So yes, I think we have a watch that we open. Yes, a watcher. So any update here is then we get the event on the watch here opened, and then we patch the local object.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
And there is also, I think we also do batching by like 1 second. This means like if there are 2 updates within a second, then they potentially might be put one as one update here.
Yeah, I know that we discussed today with Yuki about the state management and especially like some concerns around job in Kubernetes, like like how this like state management should be when we have this managed by parameter, right? So like I think we agree that in the V1 we just don't need to implement this, right? But probably like in the train job we should think about like who should like like have this orchestration. I didn't get a chance to review like all the comments, so I'm talking about like this the proposal, like I guess like that you opened like in February this year for supporting managed by in job, right? And there was some discussion around the state management, right? For jobs.
Oh, you mean like the status
Yeah,
updates,
exactly.
right? And validation of status updates.
Yeah,
Yes. So for job, for the core batch job, this is like the major reason that it's still in alpha. Because we want to allow any operator to take ownership of the job. But on the other hand, we are obliged by some API definitions of the fields that that they can need to be sensible. And because of that, we were asked by API reviewers to implement validation so that any update that happens to the job conforms to the some invariants for the fields that we want. Let's say we have indexes, we have a set of indexes that succeeded and failed. We want to maintain the invariant that they don't overlap, because it doesn't make sense for an index to be and succeeded and failed currently in the status. So we have this set of these invariants that we want to validate, and yeah, and that's why there was like significant effort to do this validation. This is now done, but we need one release in the core Kubernetes to wait before graduation to beta. So we expect 1.32 to go to beta, because Kubernetes like needs to support skewed versions between API server and controller manager. And like due to this technical issues, whenever you change validation, you need to wait one whole release in alpha.
Yeah. I know, and also like under the feature gate, right?
Yes. So that's what we do, but that's because we open this API to the wild. We say that the managed by could be managed by anything, so people could run like broken controllers, etc. In case of multi-queue,
Yeah.
this is very simple, because the state that we will patch here is always generated by training operator here. The only possibility that something could be maybe wrong or incompatible if someone deploys training operator here in a different version than here.
Yep.
But that's then hard to deal with that. But there is like a bit of possibility here. But we are trying to document that these versions should be the same.
Yeah, I'm wondering about use cases when people want to build in-house the controllers with managed by, but I guess like there are, multiple ways, right? Maybe they have the in-house, a queue system, right? They want to use, and they want to use this managed by, because I think it's like if the job controller upstream is kind of like solving all the customer use cases, what there is a reason to create the in-house controller, right? To orchestrate those APIs, like those jobs, right?
Yes, so we don't really expect these controllers to come up. The motivation for the field it is open, so that technically you can set whatever you want, and we want to do strict validation to protect the API from abusing and breaking the invariants by strict validation, but we don't really like have a use case for other controllers, or no one told us that. We just want to expose the job API to multi-queue. But it's hard to design API just for multi-queue, like couple batch job to the multi-queue. So that's why it was like agreed with API reviewers of batch job to do this like generic string. But there are no use cases now, and we believe that it's very unlikely. There were these comments that anyone would like to re-implement job controller that takes ownership of the job, but you never know what people come up with.
Yeah, I understand. I understand. Do we have any other questions for this?
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I think one question, I think I have two questions. One is, so in the managed by field, so you're saying that the management controller, the queue controller in the management cluster would strip it off before dispatching that to the execution clusters, right?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And by the
that's-
way, one more thing, I didn't put it here. I kind of forgot. There is one more thing, that we assume that the field is immutable. So to avoid any sort of problems with ownership, leaking of pods, etc., it's like explicitly in the batch job cap, and we followed the same pattern with job set, and we want to follow it here, that it is immutable. So we don't want to have a situation that one owner broke something, or the transition is broken to another owner. Basically, when we create here, we added it. It is immutable right here. But as you say, when creating the copy, we strip it off.
Got it. Makes sense. And on the question on dispatching, so these execution clusters, these cannot potentially be air gap, right? These has to be, because you're creating watches from the management, so it doesn't, it cannot, like for example, if we had air gap clusters with GPUs, does the community have any approaches for handling those?
Oh, I don't know the concept. What is air gap clusters?
Air gap would be like you can't make ingress connections to that cluster. If the cluster can only reach out to the internet, you cannot connect to it. You cannot it's not like you can't call the API directly. Only the cluster, the air gap cluster, can reach out to other endpoints. So ingress is blocked.
Okay. Yes. So yeah, we assume that the management cluster can open the watch and monitor the execution cluster. That's currently the assumption. Another model that the execution clusters pull work from the management is possible, but it's not now like even like on the roadmap further.
Guards, early stages. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Okay, that's all right. Thank you.
Yeah, it needs to open a wire between those clusters, right? And
Yes, and we explicitly require connection from the management to execution.
Exactly.
You can technically imagine that there is this connection from here to here is not needed, but just from here to here and just pull the work. But I don't know. But then you still need to somehow reflect so that it's transparent to the user. So I don't know. Maybe somehow, but I don't know. We know. For now we explicitly require communication from management to execution.
Got it. And one last thing, this execution cluster has to necessarily be associated to one management cluster, right? It can't be a general pool where it's taking jobs from different management clusters.
Oh, you mean that there are multiple management clusters that connect to the same worker?
Yeah.
This is supported actually, but we don't like, technically it's supported, but we don't do this deployments.
Got it. So I guess the reason
It's very
was that,
complicated, like confusing to debug potentially.
right.
We're in initial phase, but technically there is no problem because every job here will have a special label that will indicate where it comes from, like the origin.
Got it. Got it. So the reason for that question was like, so you're relying on watches to get the quota on the cluster queues, right? Like how to uh, verify if the incoming job fits in the cluster queue quota.
Oh,
Is
no, this is, sorry for interrupting, but no, we don't watch here the quota that is here configured. So we assume that user configures quota per cluster, and then the job, the workload once created here, it's admitted inside the cluster, and then the first cluster that admits the job, so it says, okay, I have enough quota, then this management observes that this happened, and only then creates the job, and that's why, and deletes the workloads from the others. So here maybe this is a little bit misleading. This is not running here. It will only be running here, and only one queue will admit the I mean, there could be race conditions, but then multi-management cluster will ensure that there is only one at the end of the day.
Oh, got it. So you would copy the jobs to all the execution clusters and assume that one execution cluster would eventually admit it.
Yes, but we
Got
don't
it.
copy the objects jobs, but we call it the workload object. So this
Got
is
it.
just like to check, get admitted if there is capacity. And only then, once we have admitted, then potentially, technically, there could be race condition that two workloads get admitted on two execution clusters. So management cluster will resolve the conflict, delete one of them, and at the end of the day, ensure that there is only one workload admitted. And for this only workload, there will be job and then this one-to-one running.
Got it. Makes sense.
How do you manage like collisions and like all these deletions, right? The deletions you need to make if sometime queue can admit the workload on different clusters.
So we say that you mean if there is this workload and this one admitted, how do
Yeah.
we ensure that only one of them runs, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm pretty sure that we do that because we have iterators for that, but I think we just keep it in the suspended state. We have the suspend field, and that's
Yeah.
why. But details I don't know from the top of my head now.
Yeah, because it will be interesting to see like what, for example, if you have very quick workload, which kind of can be executed like in a few seconds, and you just don't have that enough time to delete it, right? So
We
that
don't even start it
oh I see.
until we make sure that the only one copy exists. We don't unsuspend. We only unsuspend one.
Okay. Yeah, I think that that makes sense.
So
Yeah, I think
it's a bit complicated, but it's like two-phase actually, the admission here. So we have first like reserve quota, but we don't run it yet.
Mhm.
We ensure that there is only one that reserved quota, and only then we start. So we unsuspend.
Yeah, and I guess like so the first available cluster actually admit the job, right? Like you don't have priorities across the clusters, right?
Yes, currently we don't. This is one of the things that is also somewhere on the roadmap. It was requested by our users to introduce fallbacks. so that we first try one cluster. Only if there is no capacity, like after 10 minutes, we fall back here. But I don't know. That's like a very early discussion. We will see.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. So I think like I know over time, and thanks for this again, Michael. I think like we like introducing managed by it's not a problem again, like for V1. Again, like as we discussed in the issue, we can just definitely like do it like just supporting multi-queue and just like exit the reconcile if this field has been set. But in the future, yes, like I would love to like understand more kind of like from a capacity perspective, like how we can like have more support for other type of use cases. Yeah. And also like on the state management side of things, right? Similar to jobs, right? Like you would, what if like, do we really want to support the use case when user has their own training operator controller than when they used to manage their jobs, right? I haven't heard about these use cases yet, but I guess like maybe in the future, like it might be required. Yeah. Any questions from your side? Like, what do you think?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Yuki.
yeah, actually, so as you say, we can revisit this status transition variation discussion after we find some use cases, so that we can delegate Kubeflow train job reconciliation to in-house controllers. And so I have one question. So Michal, so did you get some feedbacks from MP operator approvers like Aldo?
No, not yet. But this would be nice for like completeness because Aldo is currently out of office, so he will be back, I think, on 15th August. So yeah, but I linked it here, and we basically MPI job is one of the supported jobs in queue. So we would like to, for completeness, also support it in with multi-queue. So that's why I open also the sister issue for the MPI operator, but there is no discussion going here yet.
Okay, so basically I'm okay with accepting this feature in the MPI operator as one of the MPI operator approver. So I want to ask some feedbacks from other approvers like after he come back from vacation. All right.
Sure. So maybe a question from me also. Who could be like the reviewer for the effort? So we will likely have a person who can dedicate some time to do this, but we will need, of course, reviews and approvals. I
Yeah, I
could
can
do also like first line review, but yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely review. I think the change is extremely simple, right? So just feel free to like submit the PR and then we will review this in training operator. But I think I agree with you in terms of MPI. I mean, I don't really see a lot of problems introduced to an MPI operator, but we might need to get some confirmation from Aldo on this. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
sounds good. Yeah.
And any preference, as you say, the code is very simple, so it would be like maybe tempting to do all of the operators at once, but maybe it's better to do them PR by PR, or any preference here, like at this level.
From my perspective, we can do it like once because like just Yuki, what do you think? I don't see any problems for us to just support this.
Yeah,
Right.
I also prefer to create a single peer. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be.
Okay. And do you have also, maybe this is going too deep, we can figure out later, but do you also have some E2E tests and integration tests, unit tests How do you think?
Yeah, we
would
we
be the-
we have E2Es and we have also unit tests. So the E2Es we run this today with Volcano and Schedule plugins, but we don't run this with Q, unfortunately. Yeah, this might require a significant effort, right, for us to support Q. Yeah.
We will run on our side tests
that-
end to end for the support once done inside Q, so we could cross-reference. But yeah, first we need some tests here. So I don't know. You think like unit plus integration would be enough for this feature?
Yeah. Actually, so we training operator repository have unit integration A2E tests. So when we implement managed by feature, so it would be great to implement so managed by feature tests. But so I'm thinking maybe so we do not need to implement so Q integration tests in the training operator side. So maybe so only training operator feature test should be better in the training operator repository side. Makes sense?
So this would mean basically unit tests here, or
Yeah,
I guess
right.
we
So
can sync up on this on Slack, but yeah, I'm still learning that.
yeah, I can share test implementation directory after this meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we can definitely sync offline on this. All right, I know we're over time, so thank you for this again, Michael. I think this is very exciting. I'm really interested to see like in terms of capacity planning how we can support this in V2 as well, and especially like for multi-cluster, because we also receive feedback to actually run the workloads on multiple clusters from different users for like very long time. So I think this is really interesting to like see how we can improve the capacity planning from this perspective. All right. Sounds great.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you so much. See you soon, see everyone. So see you in 2 weeks. Thank you and thanks again.
See
See
you.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.